We are inching closer and closer to the Christmas seasonal holiday, and there are some important stats that I wanted to share with you regarding real estate in Colorado Springs. Let's jump right into it. First, here are the 7-day stats. So, in the past 7 days, there have been 157 new listings within Colorado Springs, and we've had 218 price decreases out of all of those listings. And that's been pretty stable as far as number of new listings versus the number of price decreases that we've had. So, yes, there is still new inventory coming on market, and it's about as low as it has been for the past several months. We've got 185 solds again in the past 7 days, 98 pendings, 19 withdrawals, 52 canceleds, 41 expireds. Just in my neighborhood, I'm aware of a listing that finally went expired. They just couldn't sell it for whatever reason, and so those owners are going to rent it out instead. And just as a side note, if you have property to sell and you're thinking about should I sell it, should I rent it out, if you can make it work to rent it out and still be financially solvent, I would recommend doing that. I always recommend if you have property and you don't have to sell it and you're like, should I rent it out instead? Well, yeah, rent it out instead. The only time that's not going to work is if what you're renting it for is not going to cover your mortgage plus I'd buffer for a little bit extra, or if you need that money right away. But otherwise, yeah, of course, keep it, rent it out. Why would you sell it? There are 1,580 total residential properties for sale in all of Colorado Springs. We were at just over 1,600 just like a few days ago. But again, this is pretty consistent here. This is still fairly low inventory here. There are 692 properties that are under contract right now. And a few days ago, that was a little bit over 700. So this is again consistent. Now, the average sales price in Colorado Springs for the month of November was at $506,971, almost 507K, and the median being $448,750, almost 449K. Now, if you want to look at that historically, you can see that we've started to come down on the average and median sales prices just a tad from the summertime, and it's had slight fluctuation in the fall and winter months here. This chart here is going to give you a better visual of what that price point is looking like. The green line is the average sales price, the blue line is the median. So this is going from January of 2022 all the way to about present. We're a few days into this month, so there's not a lot of data to look at yet. And you'll see if you look at the beginning of January 2022, the numbers here, the graph has not changed much. That's from the beginning of last year, not the beginning of this year, but you'll see we're not really we're just hovering slightly above or slightly below 500K for the average. And for our median, we came up a little bit, average and median, we came up a little bit during the summertime of last year. Came down for the winter months. It's a seasonal dip. Came back up for the summer months. And we haven't really dropped too much for our winter months here so far. I mean, you can see there was a clear delineation of the rising of home prices over the summer of 2022 to come down into the wintertime and then to come back up during the summertime of 2023. But we haven't really seen a huge dip yet. It seems to be holding steady in terms of home prices here. Now we're looking at the average and median days on market. So how long it takes before a property goes under contract and gets a buyer and writes an offer. They're not necessarily sold yet. They just went under contract, right? So right now we're at 36, 38-ish days on market on average. And then on the median, it's in the low 20s. So you can see at the beginning of 2022, we had a pretty low days on market. It was going in 10 to 20 days. And then that number came up all the way to 56 days on market. And that was in the December, January timeframe of late last year, early this year. It came back down for the summertime, down to the 20s and 30s, and now we've gone up to the 20s and 30s again. We came up a little bit, and interestingly, we are starting to come back down. So properties are starting to go a little bit quicker in November and December than they did in even September and October of this year. If you are finding value out of these videos, please click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell so that you stay in touch with the new videos that I put out so that you can get more content like this. In November, we had 3.9 months worth of inventory. That's what we ended the month with. It actually went a little bit above. I would think it was like 4.1, 4.2 is what I noted at the very beginning of December. But every single month we have trailing sales where they don't get entered in until a few days into the next month. So now that we're at December 4th is when I'm recording this, we've had a few days for those additional sales to come in and to bring that average down. We ended November at 3.9 months worth of inventory. What does that mean? Why do I care about this? Is because historically, and a lot of real estate agents will tell you this, anybody in the business will tell you this, it's a sound bite, is that 4 to 6 months of home inventory is what we would call a balanced market between buyers and sellers. That means there is enough inventory, there are enough homes available to meet the demands of however many people are currently in the market looking to purchase, looking to buy. So at almost 4 months worth of inventory, we're very close to that situation to where you do have enough homes available for buyers to have some selection where they're not uh, vying for uh, low inventory, where there's not necessarily multiple offers on everything there because there's just not enough. But couch that with the fact that we do objectively have low inventory right now. There really actually is not a lot to pick from. Anybody that is actively looking that I'm helping is like, yeah, I mean, there's stuff on the market, but it's not what I want. It's not what I'm looking for. There's really not a lot to pick from. And so with low inventory comes few buyers looking. I've got a lot of people just waiting in the wings going like when there's more inventory or we'll wait for the spring and summer to see if there's more available. There's people who are waiting for prices to maybe drop. I've got people who are waiting for interest rates to maybe drop, probably drop a little bit. But there's, as far as people who are actively looking, who are like, yes, I'm looking at homes every weekend to see, oh, and I want to buy something right now. There's not a lot of those people. So, not a lot of inventory versus not a lot of active buyers means that we are seeing what we would normally call a stable or a balanced market, but it really isn't, if that makes sense. And on the right here, you're going to see the list to close price ratio. So how much people are listing their homes for versus what they're actually selling for. So you're seeing a lot more price drops right now. So in November, we ended at 97.9% list to close price ratio, meaning that sellers on average got 97.9% of what they were asking for. It means there are price drops happening right now in order to get things to sell. I just did a quick search for you, and there are 2,271 properties that are either for sale or have recently gone under contract. And out of those properties, 751 of those have taken some sort of price cut, maybe more than one. And what that equates to is 33.3% of these properties have taken a price cut, a third of them. And that's including properties that have come back on market, like they were under contract and now they're back on market. Those may also have taken price cuts. Well, I'm not necessarily factoring those in because we're looking at the change type really quickly, and it's telling me these are all the properties that have gone down in price, but then there's also additional properties that have come back on market, and those may have taken price cuts previously before they went under contract. So there may be more, but so at least a third of all properties on the market in Colorado Springs have taken price cuts. Why is that important to me? Is because yes, you can potentially get a property for cheaper if you wait or if you just jump in right away and say, hey, your property is listed at X. I will give you X minus 10,000, X minus 20,000. What do you think? And just throw it out there, see what they say. Because the worst they're going to say is no, but you have that opportunity right now. And I mean, that sucks if you're on the selling side. I'm like, don't give away my secrets. But that's the market that we're in, is that yes, stuff is going relatively quickly. Properties are going under contract in 20 to 30 days, but there are still properties where they were just priced too high from the get-go. And now those sellers are learning the pain of having to chase the market in order to get their property sold, realizing, oh, I'm getting like no showings, or I might be getting one showing a week. I'm not really getting much traction on this. I'm not getting any bites. I need to I need to adjust my price point. So if we come down here in November, we had a total of 2,087 new listings that came on the market for November, and we had 537 sales for the month of November. Now, those numbers by themselves are likely not going to mean a whole lot to you. So if we look at the chart instead, the green line is the number of active listings and the blue line is the number of sales. Again, we're starting from January of last year and we're going all the way to about the present. So you can see the number of active listings shot up during the summer of last year, came down for the winter, shot up again, not as high for 2023, and are starting to come back down. Meanwhile, the number of sales, they shot up for during the April, May timeframe, and then started coming back down. Even in for the rest of the summer, they were still going down until you got to your low point in January of 2023. Again, came back up and now have started to come back down. But if you want to look at it year over year, November of 2023 versus November of 2022, look at this chart for the number of sales. That's pretty much the same. You know, it's historically consistent, at least over the past 2 years. And the number of active listings, meanwhile, November of 2023 versus November of 2022, that's all also actually consistent over the past 2 years. In order to get a more accurate picture, though, I pulled back to 2018. So let's look at the number of active listings for 2018 all the way through the present. You didn't have a whole lot. I mean, in 2018, you were bumping. You know, I mean, 2022, you were bumping even more, but you had a good amount of property of inventory for sale, and that started to dwindle like hardcore as you came down to like 2021. There was just not a whole lot for sale. There were very few listings for sale, and then it shot up in 2022. The number of sales, meanwhile, has stayed fairly consistent. You see that blue line has actually not had quite as much of a jump as it did for the number of listings for sale. The number of sales has stayed relatively consistent, although it did take a tumble uh, at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, where there just was not a lot of sales there. And I attribute that to people getting scared off by the high home prices and the interest rates doing their thing. And now, as people have started to get more used to the idea of having the 7 and even closer to 8% interest rates that we were having a bit more recently, as people started to come back into the market. Now, how are showings? Are houses getting any properties getting a lot of showings? That's also fairly consistent but low. If we look at price point, you get more showings for properties that are listed in the 300 to 600K range. That's to be expected simply because there are more properties for sale in that range. So that's not really interesting to me. What's interesting to me is the data that's down here, where again, you want to pull those price points out for every $100,000 increment. It's fairly consistent. You're getting 1.5 to almost 3, 2.88 for the 200 to 300K properties, and those, pretty cheap. So yeah, more showings for there. But on the whole, it's about two-ish showings per week per property. That's on average. I mean, there are still properties that are going to have a lot more showings than two a week, and they're going to go under contract quick. There are still properties that are going under contract quickly. And typically those properties are priced right and they're move-in ready. meaning you don't have to do anything. There's no, oh, I got to buy this and I got to spend $10,000, $20,000 in remodeling work to fix this up, that up. No, it's done. If it's done, that is very much more appealing to people who are looking to purchase right now. Investors are having a really difficult time finding an ROI to purchase property right now. There's just not a whole lot of meat on the bone to make that happen. You buy an expensive property and you have to put work into it, and then you can rent it out and hopefully get, no, the numbers don't work for that. So properties, again, that are move-in ready, that are done, and that are priced right and not pie in the sky prices. Oh, like I'm going to get all this. No, you're not. You have to be realistic with your pricing at this point. I mean, at any point, and that's been historically true. You price your property too high, you're not going to get a lot of showings and you're going to have to chase the market. Now, if you're worried about, well, if I price it too low, I'm not going to get enough money for my property, you're not pricing it that low. You're pricing it on the lower end of what the range of what people are willing to spend for a property in that location, in that area, for that square footage, with that layout, in that condition. There's a lot of factors that go into what is my home worth? How should I price it properly? And once you have that range and you understand, you talk to your agent, ideally, but once you have that range of what your property is worth, if you price it on the lower end of that range, you're going to obviously increase your visibility and your interest to the available buyers on that market. If you can afford to wait and you're like, I don't care when this property sells, okay, then don't put it on the market now. I mean, put it on the market when you want to sell it, I guess. But I mean, why waste your time going through that whole rigmarole if you're not actually going to sell it at that point? Strategy I would recommend is price it on the lower end because you're going to entice, if there are multiple offers to be had, that's how you're going to entice them. You're not going to entice people to write multiple offers on an overpriced property. Here's another quick little results that I've put together for you where these are all the properties that have recently gone under contract in the last 180 days. There are 1,081 of them, right? There are 203 of those that went under contract in 7 days or less of going on market. They were under contract within 7 days. 203. That's not a lot, but keep in mind we've only got almost 1,600 total properties available for sale right now. So, yes, properties are still going quickly, but not all of them. And again, those properties have to be priced correctly from the get-go, and they typically have to be move-in ready. There's got to be something amazing about that property that just screams pick me. And one of the biggest factors of that is that you have it be remodeled, already done. There's no deferred maintenance. There's no, I've still got to update the kitchen. It's all done already. If you have any questions on this, or if you're interested in getting started in buying or selling property in the Colorado Springs area, please reach out to me and I would be happy to help you with that. My name is Kevin James Bond. I'm with Remax Real Estate Group. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.